So my troop combo is kind of, for this attack at least, 3 APCs, 5 RPGs, 7 heavy artilleries, 4 wall breakers so that they can make it all the way to that middle compartment, 2 healers, and then some footies. For donation troops, I had 1 heavy art and all British shooters from my allies. And then for the troop tactics, I used 3 elephant archers cards and 1 rifle cards, British rifle cards, because while Germans are great with their factory troops, you do need supports from rifles. So this base, number 9 on their roster, is Horse Archer. That's his name. He's triple D7, Cold War 265. Now, if you kind of slow down the base and kind of stop it, you can see that he has majority of his buildings are Cold War level. There's some towers are still atomic. There's a couple garrison that are still global. But so this is not a max Cold War base by any chance. And this layout is not the one that we see commonly anymore, because now I feel like all the big bases that we see are Rose or Valentine bases. So this one is a little bit different. So I guess I will kind of go over, when I look at a base, what do I think first, and that's going to dictate how I approach things. So for one, as I mentioned, in the attacking group, tackling the hardest bases from the enemy. So I want guaranteed 5-star versus time. So for these kind of bases, I never try 4-corner approaches anymore, because I've tried it in the past and they don't work. And especially when I know they unloaded stronghold full of EA elephant archers, you just gotta be careful, not splitting your army too thin. So for this base, the silo is right in the middle, so it's not gonna be easy to get to. And then as you can see, he has basically made it to prevent a kind of 4 corners attack with mortars and his redoubts or machine guns tower now in those area. And I'm sure there's gonna be traps all over those area. His TC is actually at the edge, so that's an easy QV. So if you attack from the forest side there, you don't have to worry about, missing QV or anything. The other thing that I want you to notice as far as weak spot is by his castle. There are no anti-guns on the outside there. So that's a very good spot to draw his generals out and throw decoys and not having to worry about those dying too quickly. And you can also notice that the majority of his anti-guns are more concentrated in the middle. So that's the weakness there. So any kind of decoys that you throw on the outskirt, they tend to do pretty well. So for me, this base, I want to approach it basically one side only in a line attack. The yellow star is going to be your heavies group, your generals, your for me, I'm not using an elephant stable, so I use basically the 3 tank destroyers. In that corner there, you see there's no anti-gun, so I know my general groups, my heavy group is going to last a long time. And then the main army is going to come from the yellow arrows. That little red boom, like explosion looking thing that's where I want my, basically my wall breakers to go into that area. And that little yellow star by the town center, is, as you know, it's going to be loaded with TC troops. So I want to throw a decoy there, to draw them out. So in this one, I forgot to put, but that's also where I'm going to put my coalition troops and my allied troops in that area as well. Okay. So for tactics, I usually bring 5 decoys, 1 sabo, 1 blitz, and the strength of gladiator, SOG. As I mentioned in my channel earlier, I think SOG is, it's the best thing to deal with elephant archers. The terracotta army, unfortunately, are just too weak. When you use the SOG correctly, the EAs, they just melt, as you will kind of see in the replay in a little bit. So one of the places that I want to decoy is by the town center, one far away from those 2 anti-guns so that they will last a bit longer. The other place I want to throw a decoy is basically right by that machine gun oil and market right by outside of the castle. That way the generals start coming out. It will also draw that heavy tank from that factory once it's destroyed. And then the silo will just keep hitting my heavies group in that corner, and they'll last a long time while it has time for my main army to break that wall, to get in there, kill those things, and get to that silo. Now, especially with the silo level 4, 1 hit from it, it can really turn your battle into basically a 2 or 1 star. So you got to be careful to sabo that, at the correct time. Especially, after your heavy group has been in the battlefield for a little bit of time, their HP just start to wither down. So you have to watch that. Okay. So usually right after I have my plans, I usually go through my drop sequence at least 2-3 times in my head before the battle, because once that timer starts, you're not gonna have enough time to think, hey, well, I'm gonna drop where. So usually for me, I drop 1 footy first in a corner where it's isolated, where there's no spawning building. So that way it will start drawing the forest defender. The next is going to be obviously the heavies group to draw that silo fire. That corner is usually chosen so that basically it's away from a lot of the factories, the heavy tanks spawning from the factories or from anti-guns, because those going to make that group die really fast. And then of course, the next is the main army, but I usually deploy my elephant archers first. The reason is they are powerful. They will start to take down a lot of the buildings first, and then they will also pretty much, they are almost like a tank, so they will take a lot of damage initially, especially if you are unfortunate enough to get some forest defenders spawning at where you want to deploy. And then next is the main army, and in that case you can deploy, I usually deploy my APC first because they take time to, their footies to spawn, and then my bazooka or RPGs, so that they can kill any incoming tanks. Because the heavy artillery are more fragile, they tend to be deployed a little bit later. In that very upper right corner, that's where I put my footy, start drawing the forest defender. And unfortunately, as you can see, the forest defender come in the place where I want to deploy my army, which sucked, but that's why I send my planes to kind of hopefully kill some of them before they mess up my drop. And then my heavy groups in the left corner, my alliance troops and my coalition troops. with a decoy to draw all that fire from them, elephant archers, and the main army. The beauty about German troops is that because the factory troops take up a lot of space, the drop is much faster than if you were British. If you were, you bring, let's say, 60 British shooters, even if you three-finger drop, it still takes a lot of time. So that's one of the advantages for Germans that a lot of people don't think about, is that you have very fast deployment of your whole main army. And that's what I love about it. So as you play the video, I brought with me 4 wall breakers, and they did its job in those walls that I wanted to break down, that allowed my army to reach that that mortar early and that castle. And as you can see, because I put a decoy right by the castle there, the general, and there's no gate nearby, the generals start to go around it. That allows my army to basically kill the generals without them engaging directly onto my army early. Now, as I mentioned about the silo earlier, it did had 1 hit off my army. Fortunately, it hit a part that was in a lot of my army. So when that happened, I was like, oh crap, this is gonna turn out badly. Fortunately, a lot of my army still survived that silo hit and made it to the next compartment. And as you see now, after I sabo that silo, I can destroy it. And then, of course, the stronghold troops came out. I always reserve at least 2 decoys, if not 3, for the EAs, because they burn through the decoys super quick. And then, of course, I use the SOG, and you see how fast they melted. They were just gone within seconds. I didn't even have to really need my planes or anything, and that whole middle section is all cleared out there. So it went exactly as I planned. So that's why the attack, it went smoothly as I expected. I have tried Cold War British troops. I just cannot take down these 260s, 270, 280 plus with British shooters. And that's why I changed to Germans. And I found that the 15% fury helps a lot. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, your drop is much faster because the factory troops have many more units a lot more space per unit. And so with Germans, my drops of my main army takes, let's say, for example, 3 seconds, versus if I had been British, my drop would have been more than 5 seconds. That 2 seconds make a big difference. The second thing is that the British shooters, while they work great for atomic age because of their range, they don't do as much damage anymore, especially with the buff from Salasi. Those HTs take forever to die. Those machine guns are super strong now. And so I just don't have as much success as British. But British, I mean, I still see other people do, take down max Cold War bases with British. So I guess it's just for my style attacking, it's better suited with Germans for max bases. So I always look at my replay, even if I 5-star it, because you can always look for things you can improve or kind of, do differently had you known. Because I mean, even now, I fail very often, but don't let that get you down. Just keep practicing. Just try. If one thing doesn't work, then just try it up, change it up.